And this is a developing story. There has been an explosion.
Absolutely shocking.
Fireball blazes through the skies over Bangkok, Thailand, leaving witnesses shocked. The incredible ball of light was captured on dash cam in the Thai capital early this morning. The meteorite then crashed to the ground, leaving a trail of white smoke behind.
120 metres of it, to be precise. The sinkhole's grown to claim a few unoccupied holiday homes and is reaching towards the nearby forest. Now they've got a much bigger problem, 120 metres of it to be precise. The sinkhole's grown to claim a few unoccupied holiday homes and is reaching towards the nearby forest. This is an area known for its mining. Experts believe the crater was caused after a flood in one of the underground mines eroded the soil from below. Mine surveyors are keeping an eye on the surrounding soil every 10 days, and local media says work is being done to prevent the crater from expanding further.
We will work all around the dangerous zone, monitor the soil movement, and see where we have land subsidence if it takes place.
Just 2 kilometres away in the city, it's business as usual.
As of today, we have a clear understanding that there's no danger to industrial and residential sectors of the city.
Wildfires have been scorching land at a record rate this year. Nearly 9 million acres have been destroyed so far. Tonight, at least 45 fires are burning in the West. At the site of the largest fire in California, Carter Evans shows us how cameras are helping firefighters stay a step ahead of the flames.
The day seems relatively calm when smoke and flames first appear from a wildfire raging in California's Sierra National Forest. But 1 minute is all it takes for conditions to quickly deteriorate. This rare view is captured by flame-resistant equipment inside the wildfire.
Now what we're seeing is the actual heat front.
Fire behavior analyst Dennis Burns says what's especially alarming about this video is how the wind picks up significantly. blowing embers and spreading flames in all directions.
That's an indicator of the winds actually generated by the fire.
So the fire is creating its own wind here?
Yeah, absolutely.
This equipment could tell you that?
Yes.
Carol Ewell leads the Forest Service Fire Behavior Assessment Team, which is gathering data to see firsthand the destructive power of these flames.
It can help us learn more about the fires and learn when to manage them and what areas of the fire need to be squashed quicker.
This summer, the battle is to keep the fires from reaching drought-damaged trees. There are millions of them throughout the forest.
Acres and acres and acres of dead trees. That's a huge factor.
Once those trees catch fire, you can see how intensely they burn, right up to the treetops.
You normally wouldn't see fire getting up into the canopies with the regularity that it's occurring right now, but it's happening, and once the fires get up there, that's more than we're able to contend with.
How does this impact the firefight?
Instead of going direct, we now have to back off.
Which may burn more wildland, but ultimately save lives. Carter Evans, CBS News, Squaw Valley, California.
Dios. Madre mía. Menos mal que guardé el coche del garaje, menos mal. Madre mía.
Fireball blazes through the skies over Bangkok, Thailand, leaving witnesses shocked. The incredible ball of light was captured on dash cam in the Thai capital early this morning. The meteorite then crashed to the ground, leaving a trail of white smoke behind. Residents who witnessed the fireball told Thai media they heard no sound as it moved across the sky.
Now, U.S. soldiers held live-fire joint military exercises with the Ukrainian servicemen in a countryside in western Ukraine, despite warnings from Russia. Nearly 300 American soldiers and 900 Ukrainian troops are taking part in the drills held in the city of Yavoriv, near the Polish border. The 6-month drills, dubbed Operation Fearless Guardian, are seen as the first long-term U.S. training program for Ukrainian forces. Moscow, which has been critical of NATO and U.S. growing military activities in Eastern Europe, has said the drills pose a threat to the peace process in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Russian forces have also held aviation drills in the southern Astrakhan region. More than 100 aircraft were involved in the three-day maneuvers, which concluded on Friday.
New Russian military personnel and equipment on the ground inside Syria, U.S. military officials tell CNN. Potentially volatile addition to a bloody civil war already 4 years old. Secretary of State John Kerry called Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to warn such actions, quote, could further escalate the conflict. An allegation the Kremlin dismissed as premature. What's unclear is who the Russians intend to fight.
Is it to shore up the Assad regime? Is it to fight ISIS, or do we know?
You know full well that the Russians have had a long relationship with the government in Syria, and again, it's up to the Russians to explain exactly what they're doing.
Satellite images show Russia has installed modular units capable of housing hundreds of military personnel, a defense official tells CNN. And this image, broadcast on Syrian state television, identified by analysts as a modern Russian-made armored vehicle not previously seen in Syria, and painted in Russian army camouflage.
What the Russians might or might not be doing at the moment that is of concern to Secretary Kerry, and who would replace Assad? Who would replace any of the other groups that are fighting for power?
Syria is Russia's key ally in the Middle East. Moscow also has a strategic naval base at Tartus in Syria. If the fragile regime of Bashar al-Assad falls, so too may Russian influence in the region. Russia and the United States had been talking about finding a political solution to the crisis. Administration officials until recently expressing hope that Moscow was open to a future without Assad. Administration officials now making clear there is only one kind of military help the U.S. would welcome.
There's a 37-some-odd country coalition that's taking the fight to ISIL. We would welcome Russia to be more involved in that effort.
Has announced that it will begin reconnaissance missions over Syria on Tuesday. President Francois Hollande made the announcement today during his biannual press conference at the Élysée Presidential Palace in Paris. Hollande added that France is also considering launching airstrikes against Islamic State militants in Syria. He says there is proof that attacks have been planned from Syria against several countries, including France.
This morning, archaeologists in England are trying to solve a huge new mystery. Technology unearthed ancient relics about 2 miles from Stonehenge. They're buried under 3 feet of earth. The so-called Superhenge site is 5 times larger than the popular tourist attraction. Mark Phillips is in London as scientists hope to dig up answers. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. Well, the archaeologists have known for some time that there's more to Stonehenge than meets the eye. The whole area around the monument is full of ancient burial mounds and other wonders dating back more than 4,000 years, but they really weren't prepared for what they've now found. The mystery of Stonehenge, how it was built, what it was for, has kept scholars occupied for centuries. Now it seems they've got even more work because there are more stones, lots of them. New 4,500-year-old relics have been found using the latest technology, ground-penetrating radar that can see beneath the surface. The scientists call it the Hidden Landscapes Project, and it has revealed hidden landscapes beyond their wildest imaginings. A perimeter of standing stones, recreated here with computer imagery, and many times the size of neighboring Stonehenge. The stones, it seems, were erected to delineate an area of special significance, some sort of temple or public forum, or both. But the radar also reveals that the stones were then knocked down and covered with an earthen mound. There's plenty here to occupy archaeologists for the next several centuries, and they want more. We met Henry Chapman, an archaeologist with the team, on the project site late last year.
It's a sort of sweet shop problem that when you're presented with loads of more information, you kind of think, oh, right, so I want some more now.
It's the Moorish problem.
Yeah, it's the Moorish problem, yeah.
Scientists are pretty sure they know what Stonehenge was for. It's essentially a large clock that tracks the seasons through the movement of the sun, a useful tool for a Stone Age agricultural society. But the point of the new discovery? Well, they know it's probably important, but they haven't a clue, really. Archaeologist Nick Snashel.
It's one of the most important things that's been discovered within the last 20 or 30 years anywhere. It was completely unsuspected, and it gives us a whole new chapter in the story.
Stonehenge has been drawing visitors since the dawn of time. Its combination of scale and mystery has been irresistible, even to some of the most powerful people in the world. President Obama passed this way on a recent UK visit. Now science has provided more to ponder. Other modern techniques, laser scanning, magnetic mapping, can reveal even more about a fascinating place we may never fully understand. But what the archaeologists really want to do next, Nora, is dig.
Colombians are proving they will not sit by quietly during their country's border crisis with Venezuela. In the Colombian border town Cucuta on Sunday, hundreds marched wearing white to demand dignity for the more than 1,300 Colombian citizens expelled from Venezuela over the past few weeks.
This march is to support Colombians who have been deported. It's to consolidate the respect that should be given to Colombians.
Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos has rejected calls for a face-to-face meeting with Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro until, he says, certain conditions are met. His three demands: the opening of a humanitarian corridor, the humane treatment of migrants, and an opportunity for deported Colombians to recover personal belongings left behind.
When you go to these shelters, the families are requesting to get their things back. And on that point, we insist to the Venezuelan government we are ready for the people to go back and get their belongings.
Venezuela appears to have met the first demand. Monday, some 1,400 Colombian students were allowed to cross the border and go to school. Local officials say more than 800 workers are also being allowed across.
We don't want anything against Venezuela. We don't want resolutions. We don't want to speak against Venezuela.
On Sunday, Venezuelan President Maduro continued to call for a face-to-face meeting with President Santos, saying he's willing to meet whenever and wherever the Colombian president chooses. Santos has yet to respond. Michelle Begue, CCTV, Colombia.
Just got it hot off the presses. They're having a press conference right now to try and elucidate some of the language because it's written in Latin and Italian and very heavy juridical church language. But I've gone through it a bit. These are some of the highlights. The main 2 points which people were complaining about was the length of time it took to get an annulment and the cost of an annulment. So what the Pope has done has gotten rid of one of the church tribunals that had to place a verdict. Before, you had to have 2 church tribunals to decide whether or not you could have an annulment. He is now reducing that to only 1 church tribunal, hence the length of time. It will take less time. The second point is he's fast-tracking some instances that he says are particularly evident. So, for example, if the marriage lasted a short time, if there was an extramarital relationship happening at the time of the wedding or shortly thereafter, and other series of reasons, the Pope says these are particularly evident and they can be decided directly by the bishop. The third point is the cost. The Pope says, with the exception of administrative fees, which should be paid because this all takes place at the local level, any appeal comes here to the Vatican, but it starts at the local level, so administrative fees need to be paid, but he says he wants it to be free. Those are the top points from the Vatican's document today.
A Perth mum has avoided any punishment over a shocking attack on a girl outside her school. The woman pinned the teenager on the ground while screaming abuse at her. The assault caught on camera.
The fight started after class between 2 teenage girls. Then Leah Ross, a mother at the school, got involved.
You stay away from my family or I'll tear your you understand me?
At first, separating the girls, she then turns on one, Savannah, wrestling the 14-year-old to the ground and pinning her down. Ross today pleaded guilty to aggravated common assault and was placed on a conditional release order. She'll pay a fine of $1,500 if she breaches the order in the next 12 months.
Well, I'm pleased with the justice system. Thank you. Goodbye.
The magistrate said Ross was provoked but then went too far. Savannah says she was shocked she didn't get a tougher sentence.
Pretty angry. Really angry, to be honest. I would have rathered her to get a fine, and actually paid it instead of just a conditional order, and at least, community service or something.
The other teenager, who we can't identify, has also been sentenced. Police say she started the fight by punching Savannah in the face. Rebecca Johns, 9 News.
Two women have died in Lebanon and hundreds have been treated for respiratory problems. That's as a massive sandstorm blankets much of the Middle East. Lebanon's health ministry said the number of cases of choking and shortness of breath caused by the sandstorm has now risen to 750. Both the ministry and the Red Cross say they are on alert as a cloud of dust and grit engulfs Lebanon and most of its neighboring countries. The storm is forecast to abate beginning on Wednesday night. It's been felt particularly hard in Lebanon's dozens of informal camps hosting more than 1.1 million Syrian refugees.
For some perspective, we're joined now by Ivan Vejvoda, Senior Vice President for Programs at the German Marshall Fund. Thanks so much for being with us. Russia's president has been saying this for quite some time, that the U.S., with its policies of invasion and regime change and support for the rebellion in Syria, Russia's ally, fomented all of this and is responsible for the outcome. Tayyip Erdogan is saying that by ignoring the needs of the refugees all this time, the West is responsible for all of the deaths. Do you think either man has a point?
You know, I think this is not the time for finger pointing. We can have a lot of policy and historical discussions on where this comes from. The Middle East has clearly been in a very deep crisis for many years, stemmed by the Arab Spring that brought a lot of hope. In 2011, we saw that it didn't go the right way. Maybe in Tunisia, there's some hope. the breakdown of Libya, and of course the dramatic events in Syria, where 4 million people have actually been displaced or left the country. And as I said, you know, this is maybe the fact of seminars. Maybe it's also, both in the case of President Putin and President Erdogan, something for domestic reasons, but definitely not the time to finger point, but to really try and help these people in the spirit of solidarity and human rights, because this wave of migration is probably the biggest, if not the biggest, after World War II, and people have to address actually the plight of all of those who are seeking to flee war, conflict, and violence.
Well, I get your point, but one of the reasons this is such a crisis is because Western nations are behaving like it's a surprise, like they didn't anticipate that there would be this kind of human cost, and that the human cost would literally be people washing up or walking up to their borders and shores. Did anyone have any reason to be surprised?
Well, I think as in other such historical events, the unintended consequences of actions are rarely anticipated. You know, nobody anticipated the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, although people knew that communism would fail. There were similar events for example, in European history in post-World War II, when the Soviet Union invaded Hungary or Czechoslovakia. We had a massive outflow of people, or the events in Kosovo, where we had hundreds of thousands of people move out and then move in. So I think that there was no preparation for this. That is true. People didn't expect hundreds of thousands of people on the move. And thus, I think this is a lesson for everyone before action is taken, to try and foresee where it will go. But I think, again, as I said, it was very hard to predict.
I'm going to ask you, nonetheless, to predict something for us. We know already that the European Commission President, Jean-Claude Juncker, is going to announce next week his plan for the mandatory acceptance and distribution of 160,000 refugees across the countries of the European Union. Clearly, at least he is trying to put a plan for it. How do you think that plan is going to go down in places like Croatia or Hungary, European Union countries that don't seem to particularly want these refugees?
I think with the dramatic pictures that we saw of Aylan on the shore of Turkey, this toddler who was found dead, or the truck that was found in Austria with 71 people asphyxiated, have focused the minds of everyone. And we have seen somewhat softening of the stance of the countries that you have mentioned, Slovakia, Hungary, and others. And everybody understands that we need a coordinated response to succor these people. We've seen Prime Minister Cameron also in Britain now deciding to accept more people. This is a wave of humanity that is arrived on the shores of southern Europe, Italy and Greece, who were left alone at the beginning to deal with this. I think that everyone understands that if they don't act together, and that's why Juncker's plan, I think, will be accepted, probably with some disgruntlement in certain quarters, but I think the ultimate unity of Europe and the upholding, as Chancellor Merkel said, of the civilizational rights that we have defined and define Europe are the ones that will actually define the meeting that will occur between European officials on the 14th of September.
An awful lot of lives at stake. Ivan Vejvoda of the German Marshall Fund. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you.
According to the legal team that represents Kim Davis, and I've just been speaking to Harry Mihat, he is the chief legal advisor. He says that the judge in this case, that's David Bunning, the federal judge that ordered her to be held, has now ordered her to be released. Again, Kim Davis has been told that she is going to be released from this facility. According to her attorneys, the judge told them through an order that he was satisfied that the judge's order was being complied with, that being, of course, that marriage licenses were now being disseminated in Rowan County. The problem here is that the attorney says she has not changed her mind, that Kim Davis is adamant that as long as her name appears on those marriage licenses, she objects and she will attempt to stop those licenses from being distributed, which means if she goes back on the job as is expected, she will bring the process to a halt. That's what her attorneys believe. and they have said they expect her to go by her conscience, which means we may go through this all again.